Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this information session on what is Techscaler and what does it mean for me and my region. We have limited time today, so the plan is to jump straight right in. My name is Kelly Gardner. I am the head of National Community, and we are joined behind the scenes by Anaïs Guillemaud, who's running everything technical. Anaïs is the head of online community. On the panel today, we have Stephen Drost, who'll give a presentation on what Techscaler actually is. We've got Shona Marsh, Head of Education, joining us with a brief information session on what education we have to offer. And then as part of the panel, we have Audrey Opdycke-Barnes, our VP of Place, and Barry McDonald, our VP of Community. Please submit your questions using the Q&A box, and please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I'm going to jump right on over to Stephen.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I hope everyone can hear me okay. First of all, thank you to everyone who's here and participating and listening to us. Much appreciated. I'm going to give a kind of quick overview today of what Techscaler is, what the sort of building blocks of it, and then my other colleagues will go into the more detailed pieces of what those building blocks actually consist of, what we're aiming for, etc. I'm going to try and do this in about 20 minutes or so, so there should be a 8-minute window where people can ask questions. So if you have any questions, please don't be shy. There are no silly questions. Ask whatever you like. If the questions you have are about more detailed parts of what we're doing, they might be answered later on in the following presentations, just to bear that in mind. So perhaps the more sort of general, bigger point of view questions you have, maybe the better. Cool. So first of all, I have to share my screens. Just bear with me. Okay, cool. So let's start. So what is Techscaler? Imagine Techscaler as a kind of giant piece of infrastructure that was created by ScotGov to help entrepreneurs, founders, early stage employees build startups. But it's not just those groups, it's also the whole sort of network around that. So councils, mentors, spaces, enterprise agencies, etc., etc. And the piece of infrastructure we're building has essentially 4 components. One is education, one is mentorship, one is community, and one is place. We're a brand new kind of agency, I guess. So things will continually iterate and change. The way we like to phrase that is that Techscaler in year 5 will hopefully be very different from Techscaler in year 1, but those main core building blocks of education, mentorship, community, and place should stay in place. We just have to work out what the exact sort of fine tuning is, but those are the 4 components. So who's Techscaler for? It's for basically anyone in Scotland who wants to build a tech startup. It's for people who are thinking about creating their startup and want to sort of learn what it's about in the first place, to be sort of exposed to the language of startup building, to hear war stories, to hear tips and tricks, to be exposed to playbooks of how to do more stuff faster, and essentially just also work out if this kind of journey is for you, if you'd rather build something new or join something that exists. It's for people who are already on that journey, and for people who are just starting, and for people who want to connect with others who are on the same journey. It's also really important for us to point out that it's not just for techies. It's not just technology companies. It's tech companies can be founded by all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, with all sorts of strengths. And we want to invite all of those people into the tent. We really want this to be a genuinely inclusive and widespread organization. Talent can come from all over the place. Ideas can come from all over the place. We're just trying to take all those different people and show them a bunch of content, a bunch of learning to help them on their journey. Cool. What do we mean by tech startup? That's a question that's asked a lot. We're focused on software product companies. Sometimes that's quite a difficult concept to get across, but basically it's the kinds of companies like, I don't know, Twitter or Stripe or Airbnb, companies like that that have a piece of core technology at the heart of the business and build a bunch of stuff on top of that. As such, we're sort of sector agnostic. Founders can come from all over the place, from health, from food and drink, energy, social impact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As long as software product building is at the heart of what you're trying to do, we hope Techscaler is for you. In the broader realms of tech, service businesses, et cetera, we're also hoping to help companies make the relevant network building to help them on their journey. It's for everyone who is at from the early stage to the widest stage of what you're trying to build. So if you're just starting out with ideation, building a minimum viable product, all the way through to looking to get to product market fit and beyond. Cool. It's also important to mention that companies can basically come in and out of that, and my colleagues will go into more detail as to how that works exactly. Just a quick schema, so you can understand what the pathway looks like for education specifically. Just the key points here. Shona will go into much more detail later on, but just to get across that it's free and it's from pre-startup. So you're thinking about building something, you're not quite sure what being a startup means. Is it just playing table tennis and wearing cool hoodies and stuff, or what's involved in that? All the way through to, okay, we've built something, we've got our product ready, we're now looking for more customers, we're looking to scale this thing, et cetera, et cetera. So we hope to have something for everyone from the very early stages on through to the building your product, on through to building the business, and then scaling and growing. We'll have touch points and we'll have content and help points for everyone along that journey. The next part of education to focus on is that the journey is about building resilience for the ecosystem. That means that if your company doesn't work out, you can join another company or go again. We're trying to create a culture and a vibe, frankly, of trying new things, not being scared of failure, trying to maximize the outcomes of being successful, but destigmatizing the moments when things don't work out and showing you entry points to come back into the infrastructure to have another go. Very, very often, successful founders are, have 2 or 3 failures that precede that success. So we're really trying to normalize that as an acceptable and just done way of building things, to build resilience for the entire ecosystem. Okay, just to give a very quick overview of what the education building blocks look like. I mentioned Startup Basics. It's a kind of free, self-paced online piece. Again, Shona can go into more detail. Really just trying to expose people to what startup life looks like, just to see if it's for you, if it's something that interests you, if it's something you think you'd love to have a go with. The next part is Startup First Steps. It's a 10-week course. It's more structure to it. The point is to meet other founders on the journey together. So it's a less kind of doing this from my room or online. It's more coming together with other people, and it'll be teaching you how to build your first product. What does it look like? Again, I'll let Shona go into more detail. The next building block is Next Steps. Again, it's a cohort-based 10-week course where you've kind of built your first product, and now you're focusing on understanding the market to take that product to. And there are just more learning for you to go through there. The next stage is a program we deliver in partnership with a group in California called Reforge. Reforge is a learning platform which was built by ex-Twitch, ex-Uber, ex-HubSpot people. So people who've really got the experience of building very, very rapidly massive platforms. This is more aimed at people who've already got a product, already got some traction, are in the vicinity, shall we say, of product market fit. And the idea there, again, is to expose them to a kind of new community. It's online, but just understand other international companies who are going through the same trials and tribulations as they are, to cohort up and to learn new playbooks and new ways of doing things. Okay, the next building block is mentorship. At CodeBase, we've been running mentorship programs for over the last 6 years or so, speaking, connecting with hundreds of startups in that time. We've got a fairly wide experience base, and we're very, very happy, frankly, delighted to take that program and aim it at the whole of Scotland. We were connecting startup founders with mentors who have current or very recent experience, so it's very much operator-led. You'll get face-to-face time with mentors who've been through, maybe there are 3 steps, maybe 30, maybe 300 steps ahead of you, but not 3,000. So it's not talking to Richard Branson, it's talking to people who've been through the same kind of challenges you're going through as a founder, and passing on their experience and their help. Mentorship is super important and very, very effective. So we're very glad that we'll be able to offer this. Cool. The next building block then is Place. And for Place, think all of Scotland, both online and offline, through a variety of different shapes and forms. Again, my colleague Audrey will talk about that in more detail as the day progresses. But yeah, that's the focus we have. The locations, the offline real world locations we have running at the moment, you can see is Aberdeen, Dundee, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Inverness and Stirling. We will be opening something in Dumfries in probably about a year or so time. So we're really excited to cover the entire country, that wherever you are, hopefully nearby somehow there'll be a community and a place for you to go, meet other like-minded people, meet mentors, have access to education, and just have a network of peers who are going through the same journey as you, of trying to create new things via software product development. Cool. The next building block then is community. Again, at CodeBase, we've been delivering community for about 8 years or so now, both online and offline. And the headline is, again, my colleague Barry will go into more detail, is that we're creating a community that gets building startups, gets how hard it is, gets how it needs to be looked at with a fresh pair of eyes, gets how working together with people, facing the same kind of challenges, looking at the same kind of solutions, understanding playbooks, all of those things, how valuable that is and how it helps you on your journey and helps you build things faster and helps you learn from the mistakes of others, stand on the shoulders of giants, etc., etc. Another huge aspect of what we're trying to do with community is not be parochial, not be inward looking, but genuinely try and create a community that is outward looking and connected internationally, and it's a kind of cosmopolitan place where people understand what it takes to build products that can scale truly globally and be used by many, many people. Community aspect is open to all. It's in-person, offline. Think of Continua all the time. It's from online to mentorship, from Aberdeen, Inverness to Glasgow, Edinburgh. Multiple sectors, multiple vectors, and just learning, being involved, having meetups to attend, events, etc. So we're really trying to create a big kind of startupified world for Scotland that brings founders together and shows them what can be done. Cool. Another very important part of community is that we're focusing on alumni, people who have done this before. Again, one of the expressions of that is via mentorship, but also just keeping people in the community, keeping it an open place where people can share stories, share war stories, share things that worked, things that didn't work, and just normalize this as a way to live when you're trying to build a startup. Cool. Next thing to focus on for us is partnerships. We're very, very happy to have built a bunch of partnerships. There are more logos. To be honest, it's very hard to update this because the partnerships kind of grow by the day. But essentially, we're trying to get across that we're not here to sort of duplicate or to challenge existing programs. We're here to be additive. We're here to help not just startup founders, but also those who are trying to help startup founders from other areas, be it academia, council, different agencies, but also VC investors, angels, etc. So yeah, partnership is a core aspect of what we're trying to do. So the more the merrier. We're really trying to help and connect with as many people as we can. Okay, final couple of thoughts that are just really important to me personally to get across. This might sound a bit weird, but just want to focus on the fact that we're not the startup police. And by that, I mean, we're not trying to own this big platform and, you know, every startup in Scotland has to go through Techscaler, or there's no kind of ego or jealousy driven aspect here. We're genuinely trying to help, as I said, startups and those who want to help startups. At a minimum, just pragmatically, we're very happy to signpost to other offerings. Hopefully people understand that there's a capacity bottleneck. Frankly, we have a bunch of working partnerships that we actively run with others already. And but at the same time, there's only so many people here and there's only so much we can do. But please, 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 if you have an offering that helps startups, we'll do our best to signpost to that and help you promote that. But yeah, just to get that point across. Okay. Sorry. I hope that's given you a very quick sort of overview of what we're doing. We're really super excited about this. We can't wait to do all we can and show all the things we've got ready. If you'd like to get in touch, you can see the website there. Please do so. And I think there's a bunch of time left now for Q&A. So let me just look at the Q&A list and I'll take it from there.
I have one question that comes up a lot, and it's what's the difference between Techscaler and other opportunities that are available like Scottish Enterprise and Business Gateway? What is different with Techscaler?
Cool, thank you. So the main difference is, I guess, the focus. We're very much focused on software product companies, as I said, and software product companies fall into a bucket which is a culture very much driven by VC, by venture capital. And venture capital has essentially created a whole bunch of playbooks and ways to create more companies. If you imagine it this way, investors over time realize they're playing a kind of maths game. You have to kind of invest in as many things as you can. So the main challenge becomes, how can we get as many people as possible to start this journey? One way of doing that is to expose lots of people to learning content of how to build stuff. The more people know how to build stuff, the more people will build stuff, the more chance you have of recouping your investments, making more investments. So that culture is very different than most other cultures. It's very much focused on outliers and getting big winners and iterating and doing things in cohorts and doing things fast. And that's what we're really trying to add, that flavor to Scotland and say, look, this is a place where you're trying to build something that's you want to aim and build something very big. Having said that, you know, we're here to try and help everyone, but we're trying to focus on tech products, software products that can scale and grow and create new large companies in Scotland. I think that's the main difference.
Thanks, Stephen. The most upvoted question so far from Janice Findley is Techscaler aimed at potentially high growth businesses, or is there some level of support for all businesses regardless of growth aspirations? Yeah,
so that's a really good question. There is a focus on high growth. You have to forgive me. There's a bunch of buzzwordy stuff that I've been desperately trying to avoid during this presentation. But I can't answer this without delving a little bit into it. There's a piece of terminology which is a unicorn. So a unicorn is a company that's got $1 billion valuation achieved within 10 years. And it's kind of seen as the sort of poster kid example of what a fast growing company is. Like Skyscanner was a unicorn, or FanDuel, companies like that. So Scotland's had maybe 3 or so unicorns. So yes, we would love to build more unicorns, very sort of mega high growth companies. But there's another piece of terminology, which is a zebra. Zebra companies are much smaller in ambition and size, and maybe also have a different kind of ethical concept, maybe not as hyper capitalist as a unicorn. We'll be trying to help those companies too, if they're software product companies. There's still lots of playbooks and lots of growth hacks and lots of ways of understanding the world that is super helpful to those kind of companies. But one of the main things I'd love to get across is, you know, it's as difficult to build something really big as it is to build something a lot smaller. And that's a kind of weird truth that's kind of hard to grok unless you've actually tried to build something. So we're just trying to create places and content that help people do stuff and have a go at things. And hopefully we can show that having, you know, a go at building bigger things is as cool or as, you know, human as building smaller things.
Thanks very much. So another one that's come up that was submitted offline is if I am an existing CodeBase member or a member of another accelerator or incubator, why should I sign up to Techscaler, and what's the difference with other accelerators?
Well, the main sort of bread and butter difference between this and other accelerators is that accelerators normally take equity and give you some kind of investment for it, but they'll take the equity at a discount, frankly. And we don't do that. This is a piece of free infrastructure you can plug into, and it will be high quality. I can promise you that. Just one example, not to dwell on the stuff that we're doing, but Reforge is genuinely the biggest thing in the world when it comes to post product market fit or product market fit based learning and growth hacking. To have that free is a huge thing. So we're really excited about being able to bring that to Scotland. We're just trying to normalize a national level of understanding the world and ambition setting. Accelerator programs are about sourcing human capital to invest in and get equity at a discount. We're not doing that. We're really just trying to help people and level up. We're representing the government, and the government just want to create a country that's more entrepreneurial, more founder friendly, more kind of focused on building new stuff rather than just, you know, entering the existing stuff.
Okay, thank you. And something else that's come up a few times is I'm just a person with an idea. Is Techscaler for me? And what is a tech startup?
What is a tech startup? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so I'll go to the easy part first. Yes, if you're a person with an idea, absolutely, Techscaler is a place for you. As I said, the sort of first building block, and again, colleagues will go into the more detail what the building blocks actually are, but the first building block of the education piece is exactly for people like you. You've got an idea, you don't know, or not being presumptuous, you might not know that much about how to build stuff or who builds stuff or what, you know, what is this stuff. That kind of program will hopefully expose you to a bunch of content that will help you understand and make a better decision as to whether you do actually want to build something or not. So definitely Techscaler is for you. The second question, the second question around what is a tech startup? A tech startup is essentially, oh God, so forgive me, this is a little bit of a highfalutin kind of explanation, but here we go. Think of tech startups as necessarily connected with investment culture. And investment culture is just trying to understand the world, understand the way the world's going, understand how we're going to live next, and then make sort of bets on people who are going to bring that about. So I'm almost 50, and I remember when I was younger, water was free and telephone calls were really expensive, and now it's pretty much the other way around. And so the world changes, and the way that change kind of happens very often, kind of almost invisibly to us, is through investment trends. And tech startups are groups of people who are trying to change the world in a way to bring something new, to, you know, make water more expensive or telephone calls free, and they do that by being exposed to playbooks from people who've done it before. That's why you'll find it can be a little bit addictive. You can find people who've been founders multiple times or serial entrepreneurs, all of that kind of stuff. But it's basically, hey, I've seen something in the world I think I could change by building a product that could, help people make that change. If I want to do it on a very small scale, I can do that as a Zebra type company. But if I want it to be a normalized way that people do stuff, so I don't know, use email instead of sending letters, or use Twitter or instead of sending text messages, or whatever it may be. If you want to do that, then have your idea, be exposed to these playbooks, try and build something. But ultimately, to get you going, there's a kind of chicken and egg moment that probably will need some kind of investment. So it's understanding what the interplay is between investment and building stuff. And the startup is the execution bit that builds stuff, and the investment part is the bit that kind of thinks, should we make some bets on those things and see how the world can change? I hope that was an answer.
That was. Another one that keeps coming up is, does the company need to be registered in Scotland?
Yes, it does. It does need to be registered in Scotland. As outward looking as we're trying to be, and genuinely think of a sort of continuum between parochial and cosmopolitan, we're very much over here. The company does need to be registered in Scotland because it's a program from the Scottish government, and essentially it's exposing people to a bunch of high quality content for free. So yeah, that's the proviso.
And I'm just looking for, so this is another one which is talking about us working with Edinburgh Innovations, University of Edinburgh, and other networks. Who should people approach first if they want to get started?
Within CodeBase or within that list of? Within that list. Do you know what? I don't think it really matters. If you want to do something, again, we're not the startup police, and Edinburgh University, for example, does amazing stuff. And frankly, we've worked with them and have done for years now, just as one example. So, I think all paths lead to Rome, hopefully. And Rome's very much the Techscaler. So, feel free to get in touch with us directly. Again, we're not here to duplicate or to there's a thing called mentor whiplash, which means that you talk to different mentors of different entities, and you get whiplash because there's so much advice. We're really, trying not to do that. We just think we've got a bunch of building blocks that make sense, hopefully. We've been doing this for a long time. And we're really just here to help. So please feel free to get in touch directly.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us for this, Stephen. We're going to move on to the second part of this, which is going to be a brief introduction to our education programs from Shona Marsh.
Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up, great. Let me just share my screen, which hopefully you can now all see. So this is just a little bit more of a deep dive into education. And if you hear that in the same tune as Alphabet song, then we should probably be friends. I'm head of education programs, and we've got a great team at CodeBase that are working on delivering the education element of Techscaler. So you've heard from Stephen sort of how this all filters into the overall Techscaler mission. And also that, like many startups themselves, we're very much in our development phase of this at the moment. So this is a starting point for what we're launching with and what we're sort of building at the moment. And this will iterate over time as we go. So let's see if we'll move on. There we go. So the overall purpose of Techscaler, just to sort of bring you back to like the mission, is that we are looking to increase the average likelihood of success of startups, specifically across Scotland, and we want to create more successful, more diverse startups. So the education element of this is looking at training and support for founders and employees that can enable more positive outcomes for a startup in Scotland. The principles that we are leading our education work on is that we will be founder driven. So we're being led by the needs of founders and empowering founders to teach each other, to connect with each other. In some aspects, that will be more formal education offerings, and in some, that's that informal education that comes through community and place and networking. We'll be amplifying opportunities, as Stephen mentioned. We're not here to recreate anything that's already in existence, and the way that our education programs will maybe differ from things like Scottish Enterprise or other things available is that we are tech product specific. So developing software products is the area that we fit into in terms of how our growth plans are eligible, sort of how that works in a tech space, building software products and the growth around that, as well as that investment landscape that really falls into tech startups, and how that operates and how you can capitalize on those opportunities. So that's the way that we're different, is that we will be tech specific, but we'll be operating with signposting and partnerships in place with other organizations who provide maybe more specific education in other areas of building a business, or building or working in tech and other elements as well. Everything we do is aimed to be self-reinforcing. So it's about bringing the ecosystem together, bringing the community together to learn from each other. Informal education, as I mentioned, is just as powerful as a formal education offering, and the power of community and peer learning is so important. So it'll be, it's about inspiring everyone to do better. And I guess that plays into that question around looking at high growth. I guess for education, it doesn't necessarily need to be that high growth that maybe comes with a negative culture attached to it, but you have to want to grow, improve, develop, and increase your opportunities. Otherwise, sort of education and mentorship doesn't really have a benefit for you. And will be iterative. So in the same principle of building a startup, this is what we're launching with, and we'll be responding to feedback, looking at change in the overall landscape of building startups, and working out where our programs are best, adding best value and how we can develop on that as well. On top of this, for me, it's really important that our programs are practical, and the knowledge and skills that you develop through taking part in an education program is really like immediately applicable, and you can put it into practice straight away. So we really want to have sort of a practical element to what we're offering. And sort of to highlight the entire education flow that is outlined in the STIR report, we are operating in this top 3 tier at the moment, with some connections, as Stephen mentioned, into universities, but we'll be developing on the actual startup ideas and business, rather than necessarily looking at the skills that come through schools and universities, and there are programs that are available in those spaces. So we'll be able to offer signposting to those, but we're looking specifically here at startup founders and individuals with ideas who are interested in working in or starting a startup, and then looking at people who are leading those companies moving forwards as well. So then when you break that down into what that looks like as to what I would call our intervention points, we're looking at pre-startup. So I'm intrigued by this weird landscape of tech startups. How can I find out more? And then providing that excitement that comes with being able to build a startup, to then moving on to putting your idea into practice. How can you sort of set that up at early stage? How do you move into the next stage, which is we're in market and we want to really capitalize on opportunities to bring in new customers, to generate revenue, and to see if our idea has any potential for moving forwards. And then looking into that scale-up landscape, which is we've found product market fit. How do we create more examples in Scotland of really high growth or high valuation businesses in the tech landscape, which is something that we're aiming for our education programs to help move more companies along this funnel. And at the bottom, you'll see there's mentorship as a line there. Mentorship will sort of follow through all of this, in that the aim would be that either your mentor evolves with you or you evolve with a different mentor at each stage. And mentorship is a really important part of the education program and will feed into all of these elements as well. And another repeated slide, but the idea being that none of the education that's delivered at any of these stages is ever lost. It's in the ecosystem in Scotland for a long time. It may be that someone who has gone through Reforge as a scale-up employee decides to set up their own startup, or someone who goes through and has a failed or pivoted startup goes back to work in an early stage company using their experience to help that company either succeed or grow quicker. And so the aim is that everything that is learned through an education program is recycled back into the industry forever. So this is sort of, that's the like holistic view as to what we'll be offering, the areas that we're looking at, and what we aim to achieve. How we're doing this in the early stages is through these 4 programs, with again the mentorship layer at the bottom. So the names are subject to change potentially as we develop the programs. So don't sort of hold on to those, but hold on to the concepts behind them. And I'll go into more detail on those in the next slide. So we've designed 4 programs as a starting point that fall across the different phases of startup growth, looking at that life cycle of how a startup grows and then how we can support and build programs that sort of enable that growth. They're not delivered necessarily by CodeBase team members. We're here to facilitate experts in their fields to come in and to deliver programs that give added value to the Scottish ecosystem. So could be international speakers who are sort of have been through this process 4 or 5 times before and are really sort of expert in how this works. And we'll be using them to facilitate and run workshops throughout the programs. And that Startup Basics that was mentioned is an online self-paced course, and this reflection exercises within it that sort of help you through each phase. So as you would be sort of evolving through those phases, you can come back to that content that's available on our community platform to help you reflect and look forwards to the next stage of building a business. So to cover a bit more of the details of this, Startup Basics is an online self-paced sort of introductory module or number of modules. At the moment just one, but more coming. They have reflection exercises and resources built into them so that you can develop, go away and learn more about each of the items that's covered. They're filled with interviews from founders who've done it, so that you can learn from their experiences, find out how they got started, maybe take some tips on how they've done it. And it's really suitable for that early exploration phase and learning how you might build or contribute to a startup. And it's also helpful if you are further along to look back and sort of reflect on some of the key components of building it, like how are you setting your culture? What's your overall mission? And how do you then design a growth program that might meet that mission? Maybe you've forgotten the mission as you've pivoted later down the line and you need to come back to it. So there's some activities in there that will really help you to sort of pin those fundamentals down. Some of the topics that we've got in these modules are like, where do ideas come from? What skills do I need? How can I find others to help me? And what support is available in Scotland? So there's a lot of signposting that will come to all of the support that you can access as you go through your startup building journey. This course is accessed through Mighty Networks, so it's our online community platform. If you head to the Techscaler website and click join and then join community, you'll be encouraged to sign up to Mighty Networks with your name and email address, and you'll find the course in the Techscaler section under Startup Basics. As I mentioned, there's one module live at the moment, and we are launching more, which are in draft stage at the moment, very, very soon. The next program that's listed out is Startup First Steps. This is a cohort-based 10-week program for early stage founders. I am looking really specifically into sort of customer, market and product discovery, with the aim that you may be able to have built an MVP, that you may have a beta version of your product in market, and you may be looking to get seed or pre-seed investment and developing the pieces of your startup that are needed to hit that sort of success point. These are live programs, I'll call them, because they're hybrid. So you could join them from one of our hubs, but you can also, and they'll be delivered from one of our hubs, but you'll also be able to join online. So it's a hybrid-based program, but live. And the idea is that we'd run a 3-hour workshop sort of once a week for that 10-week program. We're looking to start the first cohort of this in April. So if you're interested in this phase in particular, please do head to the Techscaler website and sign up as a sort of a member, and we'll be able to let you know once it's available to join. The next offering is Startup Next Steps, and this is again the same design as the First Steps program. It's a cohort-based 10-week live program, hybrid in delivery, so joining from one of the hubs or online. And the focus here is on supporting you to develop your product to reach product market fit. And it will be looking at product market fit strategy and the different sort of things that you need to go through to achieve that. And that's product development, looking at growth loops, customer retention, exploring new markets and things like that. And you'll be looking at sort of tactical traction and growing a team around this as well, because this is when you start to bring in some more experts into your team. And it's really suitable for existing startups who already have a product in market, who have some level of customer traction, and your primary focus is looking at hitting that product market fit sort of success point. We're expecting the first cohort for this one to be available sort of late summer, early autumn. So again, if you apply for Techscaler membership, we'll be able to let you know when it's available and have a discussion with you about whether it's suitable for the startup that you're building. And then advanced training, which, as Stephen mentioned, we have a partnership with Reforge at the moment. And this advanced training area at the moment, we are working with Reforge and offering that program and membership opportunities for the Reforge program. And we'll be looking at how other areas of education and training might be needed in this space. Because here we're looking at startups and scale-ups that are really at a bigger phase of growth, and they've got more employees and they have more specialist or like specific things that they're focused on to be able to grow their business. For Reforge, there's really specific training available, and that's sort of growth, product, engineering, leadership, and marketing. And what we're offering as part of this Techscaler membership for Reforge is setting up local cohorts and local sort of reading groups and support networks around those Reforge cohorts. So Reforge runs two live cohorts a year, and with membership you get access to that content year round. And the first cohort for this year is in March, or starts mid-March. So we'll be looking at companies that have startups that have submitted application for Techscaler membership who would be suitable, and we'll be looking at approaching and working with you on whether Reforge is a suitable program for you in the near future. And then mentorship is the one-to-one guidance from experienced operators. And this is sort of for committed founders beyond the early stages. So it's not suitable if you're looking at Startup Basics as the program that you'll be sort of entering into, but probably sort of first steps onwards is when it really becomes valuable and suitable for you. And we have a growing pool of excellent mentors who are able to provide sort of one-to-one support to you as you go through your journey of building a business. And then how do you get involved? So that's, as I said, those are the programs we built to launch with, or we're building. They will evolve, and so we're always looking for feedback on what it is that you need support with, or where we can add value. But to start with, the best place to go is to the Techscaler website. If you click join, top right, we've got interested in startups, join community. That area is great to just get immediate access to Mighty Networks and be able to start the Startup Basics program and to talk to others who are involved in building startups across Scotland. And then working in startups, that application form will give you contact with one of the CodeBase team to be able to work on developing what suitable support might look like for the stage of startup growth that you're at the moment. I think there were some questions I wrote down, Kelly, from the Q&A, but do you want to fire any more at me?
One question that's popped up from Stan Barker is, will the education sessions be hybrid?
Yes, so those ones I mentioned, in fact, all of them. So the Startup Basics is online only, so that's where you access that. The first steps and next steps will be delivered from one of our hubs in Scotland, and we aim to rotate those delivery hubs. But it's a live program rather than in person. So you can join in person, but you can also join online as well. And Reforge is online only, but there is like a live element to it as well.
Thank you. I don't see any education specific questions at the minute, but what I'll do is I'll move on to the panel and we'll work through the upvoted questions from the top down. So the most upvotes, is there anything in place specifically to encourage better diversity in the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, okay, I'll take this. So yes, diversity, equity and inclusion is really at the heart of what we're doing. So in terms of community, which is my department, we are developing a national event strategy, which again will put diversity, equity and inclusion at the heart of that, working closely with organisations who represent underrepresented groups in Scotland to do collaborative events. We will also, so in terms of who is in Techscaler, it's very important that we have equity of opportunities for people, regardless of where they are location-wise. For example, so from Barra to Bruntsfield or Shetland to Shawlands, everyone should have that same level of access, same access to the level of support, and likewise, regardless of who you are, how you identify, regardless of race, sexuality, socioeconomic background, etc. So we will be continually working on a community mapping exercise, so we can identify who's in the community, and more importantly, who is not in the community. And from that gaps analysis, we'll always be able to identify who we are not engaging with, and then come up with an engagement strategy to make sure that that is addressed. So yeah, diversity, inclusion, equity, very, very much at the heart of what we're doing. We also know, because we know that a diverse community is a successful one.
I can touch on also a little bit about what we're doing with the regions. So you'll see on the website that we've got 7 hubs. That's just 1 per region at the moment, where we've segmented Scotland out into 7 regions: Highlands and Islands, Northeast, Dundee and Angus, Central Scotland, which is currently based in Stirling, Edinburgh, Glasgow and West, and South Scotland. Each of the heads of region are really attuned to and community connected in their region. They're from there. They are developing strategies using the placemaking methodology, which means that it's going in, getting to know the local community, looking at what resources are available and what aren't, mapping what is, and making sure that as we come in and meet people, we're meeting people where they are. It's culturally sensitive, and that in that way, it's giving an extra layer of inclusivity and equity. And then adding to that, on top of it, the national network. We're going to lean into network effects to say, if there's resources available in one region, we will make sure that our heads of regions are sharing those with those where it's lacking. If there's a real strength in one region where they want to share it, they'll send it to other parts of the country. And equally true, we will be looking outside of Scotland to see who we can partner with in other parts of the world where there's additional resources, as well as learning on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's lots of great public sector and third sector and social enterprise knowledge when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but there's always more we can learn from activists and those who create policy and people who know their own lives around the world. So we'll always be mindful of that as well.
Thank you very much. Questions come up from John Robertson, who asks if we offer any specific support for sustainable startups or startups that aim to increase their sustainability.
I don't know if Shona, you want to pick up on this one. I'm guessing that, you know, a lot of the education programs are sector agnostic.
Yeah, so education as itself is sector agnostic, with the thread being that you must be a tech-based sort of startup, so you must have a software product. So we wouldn't exclude startups that are aiming to be sustainable or have a sustainability element to them. It's not necessarily something that we would cover as a specific element of education, but in terms of ensuring that businesses are a positive change maker for the future, and that's a theme that runs through the way that we build teams, the way that we build culture, the way we look at mission. And Stephen referenced that difference between the unicorn and the zebra, and this movement from that toxic culture around what could be perceived as a toxic culture around that high growth unicorn attaining speed versus a slower, more conscious growth that falls into that zebra category. And that's a theme that we'll cover, where so we'll be discussing elements that play into it, but it's not a program that we'll run specifically. I think in terms of community, it'll be looking at supporting people that maybe want to set up themed events. So we already have law tech meetups or fintech meetups. If someone wants to look at setting up a green tech or energy tech or enviro tech meetups, then we can, I'm assuming there'll be some support community-wise for that, so I'll leave that to you to answer.
Okay. So in Edinburgh last year, before we were launching Techscaler, we noticed a trend of a lot of people being interested in sustainability and in green tech and clean tech. So we initiated the creation of a green tech meetup, which is really community-centered and led. It's got a great lineup of speakers and people contributing, very diverse, which was beautiful to take part in. When we have these meetups start up in some regions, if there's uptake or interest in other regions, we'll see if we can work with the community team to nationalize it if that's appropriate. So if that's something people across the country are interested in, keep an eye on it.
Absolutely. I think it's important to know that we are very much community-led as well. Feedback is really important to us. And we are creating, for example, an events toolkit to support community-led events. So if there's a need for any specific group of events in one particular vertical or any specific area that you need help with, then we're happy to help facilitate that.
And in line with education there, Inge asked, being very founder focused makes sense for new or very early stage startups, but as companies grow and scale, other leaders within the company will need education, support, etc. as well. What does Techscaler do for non-founders?
That's a really great question, and one that we've been discussing as the differentiation in language as well between using founder and other. It specifically, immediately, Reforge is actually not designed to support founders necessarily, and the people that this is most applicable to are experts in things like data engineering and growth marketing, or maybe people who have worked for other companies that are not in a tech startup space or come into a tech startup and are looking for support in those areas as a new person to this sector. And so Reforge specifically is for employees. It's not necessarily for founders. As we move back into next steps, there will be some elements that would be really relevant to really early stage employees, maybe your head of operations, your first or second employee within the company. And we still need to assess how that looks in terms of what we're able to deliver and how relevant it is to different people. But definitely interested to know a bit more, probably like feedback wise, as to what specifically you might be looking for. Because again, it's about us being able to know what needs you have and seeing if we can create something, or there's already something existing that would support those early stage employees or specialists within your startup.
And it's important to remember that our online community via Mighty Networks is open to absolutely everyone. You don't need to be a founder. There's lots of resources on there for people at in every department of every business. So yeah, not founder specific on Mighty Networks. Everyone's welcome to join. I encourage you all.
I guess this is where the meetups also come up, of saying, you know, in the communities we've already built and nurtured, we always pay attention to what things the teams need, not just founders. And there have been little meetups that have again been community led, like HR and ops, CFOs and people interested in finance and accounting, where you're at a certain stage of growth and you're the person who's been assigned taking care of accounting software. Okay, I need to talk to other people. I need some support in this aspect. And so we support the community in creating meetups where these topics are ongoing for people. We've had the marketing meetup in Stirling, which Barry's team, when he was back in Stirling, created. So there's always those spaces that we will support, give resource to and attention to, and help other people connect to, so it's in and of itself another community growing within the community.
I have answers. Another one that I really like is, do you feel there are enough pre-start early stage companies in Scotland for Techscaler to work with? Or is the hope that by launching Techscaler, you'll encourage more people to start this type of business?
Go for it.
I think we've all had many years in the startup world in Scotland, and one of the reasons we were excited about Techscaler is because we know the energy is out there. One of the things that ties back to diversity, equity, and inclusion is who's being championed to become a founder, who's being given the confidence, who's being amped up to say, I'm going to take this from an idea and forget failure to launch. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to find people who will support me. I'm going to do the vulnerable thing of saying I need help. There's so many people in Scotland with amazing ideas and the energy to make something work. This will help us tackle the other barriers, which are the societal, the cognitive, the confidence, and sometimes cultural too. So fully believe Scotland has plenty of ideation phase startups out there.
Absolutely, and it's about making the education as accessible as possible. So people are still at that ideation stage, and we want to make being able to start your own tech startup as accessible and easy as possible. In terms of numbers, absolutely, think here in Edinburgh alone, there's nearly 70,000 people employed in the tech sector, and that's growing all the time. So yeah.
We're coming to the end of the session, but this is a really lovely question from Selby, and it says, for scaling tech companies that are not registered in Scotland, but have a local tech team, how can we get involved and support the community? And then they've said, for example, attending networking events, facilitating mutually beneficial introductions, offering job opportunities and mentoring startups within the Techscaler community.
Yes. Is the very short answer. Run short of time, you absolutely can, and all those things that you suggested, attending network events, facilitating introductions, employing people, absolutely would love to work with you, would love to chat with you. And for me, regardless of where you are, if there's value to our existing and growing community, then we want to talk to you.
Yeah, come join the online community, come to hot desking and meet people for the day, and have a look at the event schedule for sure.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to close the session now. I'd like to share my screen quickly, just to let you know about our upcoming events. So this has been our online session. This session has been recorded and will be shared with you. Any questions we haven't answered will be answered after the session and emailed out to you in a post-event email. Our next session is next week in Edinburgh. We'll then be in Stirling, Glasgow, Aberdeen, south of Scotland, Highlands and Islands, and Dundee. We aim to have a few of these sessions, particularly those in the south of Scotland and the Highlands and Islands, running as hybrid sessions. So if you are unable to attend in person, you will still be able to attend online, and we'll be able to answer all region-specific questions at those events. I'd like to take a minute to thank the panel for joining us today, and thank you for giving up your morning to join us. Please feel free to email any questions, and head on over to techscaler.co.uk if you'd like to get involved. Thank you very much, and hopefully see you at one of our regional events. Bye.